It feels long overdue, but this wide receiver is ready to step up for the Nittany Lions.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Penn State fans? You are Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, bringing you all things Penn State Nittany Lions, as much coverage as possible here on the show. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why you want to be 100% certain you are getting the right candidates. LinkedIn Jobs does just that. They help you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Observations from Penn State football practice. Every Wednesday, the media, we are lucky to go see Penn State football practice in person and get some observations and notes. That's what we're going to talk about here today. And we're going to start with the wide receivers. Yes, passing game didn't look so good against Ohio State. Before I let you know who that is, subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, and comment and let me know what you think is going to be the biggest change for this Penn State team after the Ohio State game. We're going to talk about the offensive line and the tight ends, Andrew Rapley and Khalil Dinkins, just how important they are to the offense, believe it or not. For the Nittany Lions, though, at the wide receiver position, it's Dante Cephas. And the observation that I have been able to make, it's a subtle one, but I think it speaks volumes here. And this is more of a, well, take it what it's worth here. Dante Cephas was lining up with the first group, and maybe this just happened to be the timing, right? Maybe where he was in the rotation. But when the drills seem to start, they do quarterback wide receiver drills. They go short throws, medium throws, intermediate throws, and then long throws, right? And Dante Cephas typically was one of the last ones to go in these groups. He was not a scout team player, but when he was learning the system, going through practice, especially early on, when we saw these week 0 practices firsthand, Dante Cephas was going with the 3s and the 4s. When they were going single file, he was typically one of the last guys in line. And it stood out to me that he was one of the first ones to go up in practice with the first group. So they usually run about 3 to 4 wide receivers at a time with these drills. They got to get reps. They keep going. So Keandre Lambert-Smith, Trey Wallace, typically your first guys to go. Dante Cephas, when at least I was scouting practice for the 10 to 15 minutes, it seemed like he was getting those reps. Again, this isn't a matter of depth chart, but the veterans typically go first. And when practice started at the beginning of the season, right, the fall practice, the fall camps, Cephas was going closer to last as opposed to first, and now he was up front. So take with that what you will. I think this makes a lot of sense here because Penn State needs a change at wide receiver. We all know this. Caden Saunders had the touchdown at the end of the Ohio State game, but outside of Keandre Lambert-Smith, everybody's performance was bad. And Keandre Lambert-Smith, I will give him enough credit because he did something in that game against the Buckeyes, but he was far from perfect. But he had the best performance out of all of them. Trey Wallace, Liam Clifford. It wasn't until the final 90 seconds that Dante Cephas and Caden Saunders had even a little bit of the stat sheet, a little bit of stats in those columns there. Ohio State's defense did very good at blanketing the wide receivers, but for Penn State, they need a change. Wide receivers coach Marcus Hagans was brought in for this exact reason, to be able to develop wide receivers. Dante Cephas was brought in, transferred, and he's got 2 years of eligibility. So he's a rookie in this system. I understand, but now is the time. You had that wake-up call. There are no more excuses at this point for the wide receivers. So on Saturday against Indiana, and I think moving forward, we are going to see a change where Dante Cephas is going to see more snaps. Barely saw. I think he had 12 snaps logged against Ohio State. That's absolutely unacceptable. Mari Evans, Caden Saunders, I anticipate, especially against an opponent like Indiana, because this is where you can test this. You don't want to test this theory against Maryland. Practice, yes, the guys who work hard throughout the week, you want to reward them. But at the same time, if you can't do it on Saturdays, if you can't do it on Sundays, why are you even playing? Who cares what you did in practice? It doesn't count. So if Dante Cephas is able to do it in the game, you have to let those guys to prove it. And I think Cephas is the first one. Caden Saunders should definitely be the second. And then Amari Evans, the third. Malik McClain still seemed to be a guy that is lower on the depth chart. If we're going to take this for its face value here as how Penn State is evaluating the wide receivers, Malik McClain was never one of the first ones to go. It was typically Trey Wallace, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Dante Cephas now. And then that second group, Liam Clifford, Caden Saunders, and then Malik McClain and Amari Evans. So just something to keep an eye on. I am anticipating, but it has not been confirmed by the coaching staff. And let's address James Franklin's comments too. James Franklin, about the wide receivers, admitted the passing game is still far behind and said that nobody has stood out. James Franklin will tell us. We ask the questions. We ask the right questions as the media, as the fan base. He will tell us. He's not going to. It doesn't seem like he keeps a lot of secrets here about the depth chart or just injuries. Okay, just injuries because the health of his players, that matters to him. And that's right, private. Okay, that's a private matter of information. Besides the point. If we're looking at a competition, in this case, he would have let us know by now how far along Dante Cephas has come or that he has stepped up with those two wide receivers. And the reason James Franklin keeps saying it's Trey Wallace and KLS is because it's just those two. Something's got to change. It's a small little bit of information, evidence that something might be changing, but Dante Cephas, I think, will get more I know just from observing that he will get more opportunities against Indiana. Just a matter of what you do with them. Now, there were some other things. Khalil Dinkins, Andrew Raplia did not play. Khalil Dinkins logged a snap, one snap. Andrew Raplia was inactive against Ohio State. What that means for the offense and why they are so important is going to be discussed in the next segment. Let's hear from one of our sponsors on today's episode, and that is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. It's pretty simple. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including the pros and the sharks, believe me, it's tough. You pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player slate of projections, and you watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is really simple. It's simple. You make your picks, and you can submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. And with PrizePicks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. How about that? For NFL games, college top 25 games, you have a player that exits in your lineup in the first half, and he does not return in the second half. That player is then rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with injury insurance. Now, what do you got to do? You go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. It's prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use that promo code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And this episode is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you are getting the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's easy to create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. Then all you got to do is add your job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills, just the right experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And the Locked On Podcast Network amps up college football coverage every single Friday with Locked On College Football Kickoff Live at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. That's right. It's the show devoted to college football to talk about big conference rivalry games, to preview the college football playoff implications, discuss the news and notes, make some predictions. It's all live, 11 a.m. Eastern Time across all the Locked On College YouTube channels, including Locked On Nittany Lions. And it goes live 11 a.m. Eastern Time this Friday and every other Friday. And you can listen to it back wherever you get your podcast once it's finished, once the live show is completely finish. I've been a guest on it twice now. Look pretty silly making my Penn State, Ohio State predictions, but we'll just forget about that. But always grateful to be a guest. I'm pretty sure I'm hoping to be back on it for Penn State versus Michigan. Now, Penn State has to make some adjustments before we get to Michigan. And one of them is, how are they going to move forward with the T formation? I know it was strange to me. Penn State, in the biggest game of the season, did not call a single play out of the T formation. Mike Yurcich didn't just have a bad game. He wasn't calling any of his best plays. Why was that? Well, going to practice, you kind of have the benefit of understanding what's going on here. And then you rationalize, okay, 2 + 2 = 4 here. Pretty simple math. What is going on with Penn State, and why aren't they called? Why isn't Mike Yurcich calling a bread and butter formation, bread and butter plays in 3rd and short? It didn't matter. They needed those plays to convert, and Mike Yurcich refused to go to them. So let's discuss that. Khalil Dinkins played 1 snap against the Buckeyes. We know that he's been banged up at least over the past few weeks. He's had some bumps and bruises, but I'm happy to say that at practice, I saw him practicing. Okay. He seemed to have no limitations. He was out there, but here's who I didn't see. True freshman Andrew Rappleyea. I did see Jerry Cross. I did see Joey Schlaffer. We're going to talk about those two guys in a couple of minutes here. As far as Khalil Dinkins and Andrew Rappleyea go, those guys are clearly tight ends 3 and 4. In the T formation, this is where it relates back to this. You can't just run the T formation. You could hypothetically, yes, run it, and I'm not opposed to this. Running it with an additional offensive lineman in the backfield. I think they like that ability to have 3 tight ends and more of a mobile blocker. Maybe whoever your fastest and most athletic offensive lineman is, it could work out that way. But Penn State doesn't seem to. They know the X's and O's better than I am. I'm just maybe thinking a little outside the box, maybe too far outside of the box with what they could do if that 3rd tight end is missing. But you need Theo Johnson, Tyler Warren, and then who's in the backfield? It's been typically Khalil Dinkins. But Khalil Dinkins isn't available. Okay, so who's next up? Andrew Rappleyea. Andrew Rappleyea is not available. So then what happens? Should be Jerry Cross, right? It's not going to be Joey Schlaffer. I'll explain that in just a few seconds here. Bear with me. But Penn State can't run the T formation without 3 capable tight ends. So that's what happened. Mike Yurcich was handicapped by the fact of he didn't have the players available. That's concerning for a variety of reasons. One is Khalil Dinkins going to be okay moving forward. That's great. We saw him at practice. We also saw JB Nelson at practice. We'll talk about the offensive linemen in the 3rd segment, but we're still with the tight ends here in the T formation. Khalil Dinkins is at practice like JB Nelson, but is he going to play against Indiana? Is he going to play against Maryland? He had 1 snap against Ohio State, and something told them something else, that he shouldn't be in those kinds of plays. Whatever indicator they got from that 1 snap told them everything to know about Dinkins' availability. He was not on the inactive report, but Andrew Rappleyea was. So what is going on with Rappleyea? How serious is this injury? He is not at practice. It gets very interesting in that regard. So let's move down the depth chart here. Khalil Dinkins has come on a long way. I also really like Andrew Rappleyea. Andrew Rappleyea, true freshman tight end. He's looked good in practice when he's been playing. He has appeared in 1 game. He seems like one of those players with the yellow light. He's seen time on the field, and he seems to have passed Jerry Cross on the depth chart. Jerry Cross is a redshirt freshman. He's in his 2nd year with the program. So why isn't he on the football field? When he's on the practice field, it seems like he's on the scout team. From when I've been on practice, it seems like he's wearing other players' numbers to represent the opponent. Penn State likes to do that. James Franklin likes to do that, where they switch up the scout team players. They wear a different jersey number. Be prepared for that if you ever get the chance to attend a Penn State practice. That will trick you if you're not paying close attention. You have to be very careful about what players you're watching, because you might be watching a scout player with the same number as a Penn State player and think, oh, that's a good catch. And that wasn't really that person I was watching. Can't talk about that one. But the concern is Jerry Cross is in the 2nd year of the program. I understand being on scout team, but when you have injuries to your tight end depth, why is he not coming in? He has the red shirt. It's not a matter of preserving eligibility. I do find that very interesting. They clearly do not trust him. He has appeared in 3 games, according to GoPSUSports.com, but why can't he be used as that additional tight end in the T formation? I have to imagine he's working on the same plays, has access to the same playbook as everybody else. I understand that Andrew Rappleyea is the better tight end prospect at this point in time, but being in your second year of the program, you've had the chance to learn this now for quite some time. What is the holdup? Why can't Jerry Cross come in? Because Penn State would rather elect. Mike Yurcich would rather not call the play when you are down on tight end depth. He would rather say, no, we are not running the T formation than putting Jerry Cross in the backfield or at one of the other tight end spots. That is something to keep an eye on moving forward, especially if Andrew Rappleyea is out for an extended period of time and Khalil Dinkins is not 100%. Even if Khalil Dinkins is off the injury report, he is active. It's a matter of if Penn State plays him. Same thing happened with Trey Wallace and Amari Evans. If Khalil Dinkins, doesn't matter if he's on the injury report or not. It's if he's on the football field and actually playing in the game. And Penn State clearly says, we would rather not play Jerry Cross than run the T formation with him in it. That's just very telling from where James Franklin and Mike Yurcich stand. As for Joey Schlaffer, I just want to give a tidbit about him. He came into the season weighing 225. This is a clear red light. He talked green light, yellow light, red light for the true freshman. He has the red light. He's very underweight for a college tight end. You're going up against 250, 60-pound defensive ends. You will get mauled. You will get eaten alive. And so Joey Schlaffer, it's best that he stays in the weight room, learns the playbook. That you just do not want to see. You do not want to see him put in a situation where he can't hold his own against guys who have been playing college football for 4, 5, maybe even 6 years. That head-to-head matchup would not go over well. There is no chance he sees the football field this season. Maybe at the end of the season in game 11 or 12, but it is very unlikely. I think he has the full-on red shirt with the red stoplight. Now for the offensive line, JB Nelson was carted off against Northwestern. He's been at practice. A certain player has taken reps at another spot. So could some changes be coming to the offensive line? We'll discuss in just a second. Let's take another break to hear from one of our great sponsors, and that is FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Snap back into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I use FanDuel. I like FanDuel a lot. Right now, Penn State is a 31.5-point favorite with a total of 45.5 in the Indiana game. If you like those lines, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season and college football. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And also sponsoring this episode is Team Ticker. For the visual audience, the people who watch it on YouTube, you can see this in the background. That sign to my left is a Team Ticker sign. Audio listeners, I'm going to describe it for you, and I hope I describe it very well because this is a one-of-a-kind sports sign for Nittany Lion fans. Whether it's football, men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, soccer, softball, Team Ticker has you covered with this incredible sign. You never miss a game with this high-tech retro display providing a countdown to the next big game for all those sports, as well as daily updates on the latest team news, stats, schedule, standings, and more. And you're probably wondering, okay, how does this work? How does this happen? Well, there's a mobile app. There's a mobile app that allows you to connect the device to the internet so you constantly get those updates. You get those frequent updates and changes. You see the rankings on the screen. They are up to date, up to the minute. The mobile app is super easy to use, and it's super easy to hang on the wall. The design will have you up and running in minutes. Each sign is officially licensed, meeting high-quality standards, and it is assembled by hand in the United States. Team Ticker is the ultimate upgrade for your Nittany Lions sports collection. And once you hang it on the wall, you'll be the talk of all your fellow Penn State fans. If you're looking for that eye-catching item, or holiday season is closer than it may appear. I've already seen holiday and Christmas stuff up in the stores, and I'm like, man, it is close if you want to get a special gift. That's a good idea right there. Teamticker.com. Pick up your team ticker today. Team Ticker is the one-of-a-kind sports sign from now until the end of this month, October, so you got to hurry. Go to teamticker.com, use promo code LOCKEDON, and you will receive $50 off your Team Ticker purchase. That is promo code LOCKEDON at teamticker.com for $50 off your Team Ticker purchase. And Locked On Nittany Lions is proud and privileged to be partnered with HappyValleyInsider.com, Penn State rivals. I did write up a notebook for there about Penn State practice. And if you want to see more insight and analysis about the Nittany Lions, about the Indiana game, what's to come for Penn State, check it out at HappyValleyInsider.com. The offensive line gets a little bit of a status update here. JB Nelson, James Franklin confirmed to us in the post-practice press conference. I know, say that 3 times fast. First take, too. JB Nelson is going to be a full go this week. He was available against Ohio State, but when you get carted off against Northwestern, that's not exactly easy to come back from. We don't know the extent of the injury. We don't know the specifics. We just know that JB Nelson has made a lot of progress since that game against the Wildcats and that he is a full go for this game against Indiana. He was practicing all week last week going up to Ohio State, but Penn State felt there wasn't enough to play him in that game. And then now he's practicing and doing regular routine drills. I didn't see any signs of limitations for JB Nelson. Anticipate him back against Indiana because the offensive line, JB Nelson is proving that he is more valuable than meets the eye. Nelson came in as a Lackawanna community college transfer, had that year to develop with the Nittany Lions, and now is a starter at left guard. And Vanga Ioane he's done well, and he's made progress too as a redshirt freshman. James Franklin has praised him a lot in past press conferences, but there is definitely a noticeable difference between Nelson on the field at left guard and Vanga Ioane. But I did notice something also interesting about just when those guys are taking reps. Sal Wormley's taking reps at center. We know this. We've seen Drew Shelton move back and forth between left tackle and right tackle. The whole point is to have diversity in your skill set for the offensive line because you never know. You might have to go into a different spot where you're uncomfortable. But Caden Wallace, who is the starting right tackle for Penn State, was at least participating in some double. Again, it's kind of like the Dante Cephas thing. Take this with what you will. Put a value, put a number on it with what you perceive it to be. But Caden Wallace taking reps at the guard position. Basically what they do is they line up in these duos. They line up next to each other. So Olufashinu and insert Caden Wallace here. Instead of lining up on 2 opposite ends of one another, nowhere next to each other, they are now side by side, and they're working on the double team and climb to the second level. So this is a double team drill. The tackle and the guard and the center will work together in conjunction. They will block whatever scout player or whoever's the defensive line that's representing, and then they will move to the second level. It's a very simple drill. Watch the practice highlights that we posted on Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube. You'll be able to see this fully and understand what I'm referring to. So Caden Wallace sliding over to that spot and working next to Drew Shelton or Olufashinu, Javen Williams. I find this a little intriguing because is Penn State going to make a move where Hunter Norzad is the center? Sal Wormley seems to be solidified as that right guard. I don't think that's a question mark. But now, and this is something that I proposed after the Ohio State game. Does Penn State feel in its best interest that the best 5 offensive linemen, Olufashinu at left tackle, and then at left guard, Caden Wallace, and then in the middle, Hunter Norzad, and then Sal Wormley, and who's that right tackle? Drew Shelton. Has Drew Shelton made enough progress? Because he's admitted to us that that left tackle to right tackle change is pretty tough. It's pretty difficult. It's not exactly the same just because you're switching sides. It's the same position, tackle position, but each side you have to be a different type of player, whether you're on the left or on the right. And it's been a big transition for him, and he's acknowledged that. So has Shelton come a long way as a true sophomore here? It was just a glimpse. It was a couple of reps. I can't put too much stock into this one as I can with the Dante Cephas one. I feel a little more confident because there needs to be a change at wide receiver. Offensive line, the grouping of, JB Nelson not being 100% makes sense. And with an opponent like Indiana, where you're a 31.5 point favorite, may I mind you, you can experiment with these things, see what the chemistry is like. The offensive line can only succeed if there is chemistry and symmetry. If Caden Wallace moves into left guard, is he still good enough to replicate his production at right tackle? And then you're not sacrificing anything with Drew Shelton. And how much forward do you move by shifting some puzzle pieces around here? But I'm excited to see it. I'd actually, personally, with what people have said about Drew Shelton on the coaching staff, Steve Jones, who's the voice of Penn State football, believes that Drew Shelton would start anywhere. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to listen and acknowledge that and say that Drew Shelton moving in at right tackle with the changes and then sliding Caden Wallace over to left guard might be a pretty good idea until JB Nelson is truly, fully 100%. Not 80, not 90, not 99, 100%. See what Penn State can get out of this offensive line with the production. So those are my observations from Penn State football practice going into the Indiana game this Saturday. For more Penn State football content, we're going to have instant reactions, more previews, talk about recruiting. I posed an interesting question on my Twitter account, X, whatever you call it, right? Should Penn State have a roof, have a dome over Beaver Stadium? Should Pat Kraft actually put this in the blueprint for the renovations? I'm going to have an episode for that pretty soon. I got some pretty blistering feedback from the fan base. Very passionate about a dome, a roof over Beaver Stadium. I'm excited to discuss it further, and it'll all be right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.